One.
Okay, so I call to order a meeting in the Affordable Housing Trust. I'm going to read the statement for the agenda. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the North Andover Affordable Housing Trust will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning into Comcast Channel 99 or Verizon Channel 28, or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay. Hi, Joan.
Yeah. Hi, Joan.
Okay, so let's do a quick roll call vote.
I think your audio is off, Joan.
Oh.
How's that?
Okay.
Yeah, good.
All right, let's roll call. Go ahead, Joan, you can go first.
Joan Fitzgibbons. Present.
Chris G.
And George Kaler.
Roger Lawson.
And Laurie Burzlaff. Okay. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for May 4th, 2021. Somebody want to make a motion? Or are there any changes?
I didn't see any.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as documented, Laurie.
So moved. Seconded.
Okay. All those in favor, let's do roll call.
Chris is a yes.
Joan is a yes.
George is a yes.
Roger is a yes.
And I am a yes. Okay. Okay, next item is the affordable housing fact sheet that everybody, I believe, received a copy of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it now, Laurie.
Yeah, I just want to pull it up. So yeah, I think this is great. I only have one small suggestion. Does everybody have it? Like, have you all gotten it?
Mine's opening up now, Laurie. Hang on one sec. Okay. Yep, I have it. I'm good.
So George helped prepare this, which I think it looks great. So my only suggestion that I would like to make is where it says North Andover needs more rental housing. I would like to change that to affordable housing. Because we just need affordable housing, whether it's rental or home ownership. I don't know if we want to specifically say rental. What do you guys think?
I like the change that you're proposing, Laurie. I think affordable is a better fit. Yeah.
I'd agree.
Did anyone get a chance to watch the housing forum that was done?
Yes, I did.
No, I did not. No.
So I'm going to be talking, and if you guys agree, Andrew Shapiro and I were talking afterwards. They have some great slides and great videos that I thought we could just start maybe sending out, information through the website just to get people more familiar. There's some good stories from participants that, young adults that have grown up in town that can't live here or are living in their parents' basement because they can't afford rent or anything. And some good numbers with like how much money you have to make, like we have in here. You have to make $70,000 in order to be affordable for the average rent in North Andover. So things like that. So we were thinking that we would brainstorm and send out like maybe weekly messages on housing or, facts and include things that are in here. But I also was wondering, would you guys want to, I was debating on whether we should give them out at town meeting. It's not related to any kind of warrant article, but it's just an information thing. I don't know how people feel about that.
Lori, I don't want, I don't want to sound like a poor sport, but I'd like to push back a little bit against your suggestion.
Okay.
The flyer was motivated because the Affordable Housing Trust was taking up, or we were discussing a responsibility with regard to strategy number 14 in the master plan. And strategy number 14 is that the Affordable Housing Trust can support housing for people earning under 30% of the area median income. And that's the last item on the agenda. But anyway, when we first talked about that, or when I first said to the trustees that is in the master plan and we should talk about it, the trust should talk about it, there was a discussion about putting out a flyer, and I interpreted that to mean a flyer oriented towards people earning less than 30%, not 80%. And I also think that people earning under 30% probably are going to rent. So this flyer was really focused on trying to establish a need for rental housing. Now, there certainly is a need for affordable housing, but if I were going to write a flyer for affordable housing, advocating affordable housing in general, I would have some different statistics. I mean, there's really three facts in here, the three middle paragraphs that are separated by a dotted line. And one of them is general. A quarter of the households earn less than $50,000, but the other two are oriented towards rents or rentals.
Okay.
Oh, and actually the last one, the fourth one that's below the last dotted line, that's also a rental fact, so to speak.
So I agree. So what if going back to the idea that Andrew and I had been tossing around last week, why don't we just do another flyer?
Well, that's what I would vote for. Keep this one because it's focused on rental.
Okay.
I keep that focus and then make another flyer. And
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a good slide that was, that they had at the housing forum, that showed the average home price in North Andover and how much you would need to make to afford to buy that average home.
Well, and Joan gave me some statistics on home sales for the last 3 years. Anyway, I hesitate to do this because I'm a procrastinator and I have other things I'm procrastinating on, but I would be willing to take a cut at another flyer.
Okay.
There won't be anything artistic. All of the artistic elements of this flyer are because of somebody in Andrew's shop. He never told me, he never gave me a name. I don't know who it is.
I think it's him.
Is it Andrew?
I think so.
Okay, well then kudos to him. He deserves credit. And I'd like to have the same arrangement. I'll provide words, but somebody else provides graphics.
Absolutely. So if you just want to send him the little blurbs, and I would definitely take a look at the slides that are on the website that they used in the housing forum, because they have the information. we could even pull it together. We probably have all the information there, George.
Yeah, well, certainly between the master plan, the housing production plan, and then that presentation, yeah, there's more than enough. And
Right.
incidentally, also, I asked him, and he sent me the PowerPoint file, so I have the file
Okay.
and can copy at will from it, or steal at will.
Okay. So why don't you work? Do you want to work on sending him some blurbs, and I'll give him the heads up that we're gonna leave this one as a rental one, and we're gonna do another one as an ownership one. Does that make sense to everybody?
Ownership, and then also affordable in the sense it's aimed at people earning less than 80%.
Yeah. Because that actually goes well with our idea of sending different information out like on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
We're going to try to think of some, like, you know how Melissa, the town manager, is doing the Warren article of the day? Well, we're going to try to think of something like that, like, you know, housing info this week or something like that, like just to get, we're going to send out the videos, like, you know, the short video clips. So people who don't watch the whole, what was it, an hour and a half long forum, they'll get the stories. So we'll send out a story one week and then a fact sheet another week and then maybe another story. So that's kind of so this actually goes well with that as far as having different flyers.
To Laurie's point, can we say on the bottom needs more affordable rental housing? I mean, that's kind of the point we're making with this fact sheet in any case.
Yeah.
You know, the text will become smaller, I imagine, but, you know, especially in comparison to the top where it says housing choice improves the local economy. But, you know, I think that's the point we're trying to get across here. And I think the statistics are very helpful, George, and kudos to you for putting this together. It would be great to have a separate sheet that talks about affordable housing in general. You know, I just kind of go back to the first conversation we had and just, you know, wanting to dispel some of the misconceptions around affordable housing.
Yeah.
I think we could probably get into as well. That might not necessarily be statistics based, you know, with the numbers, but, you know, I think that's kind of one of the points we want to get across. So, you know, it looks like this is going to be like several phases of information going out, which I think is even better.
I think that's a good idea. I can try to work on a general one. George, if you want to work on the home ownership one,
Okay.
and we can have Andrew fancy them up for us with his graphics. Does that make sense? But I agree, we should put more affordable rental housing in there. Does that work, George, for you?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. So I'll ask Andrew to do that. And then we can work on the other two flyers. And it actually might be better anyway to start sending them out after town meeting, because I don't want people to think that this is some kind of campaign for town meeting, because it doesn't have anything to do with town meeting. It's more
That's a good point. Yeah.
promoting, you know, promoting what we do and promoting affordable housing. And at some point we'll be promoting the rental assistance program. We'll tie that in. I mean, the first time home buyer program. So, and we can also promote the rental assistance program too, because that's still going on with GLCAC. So, okay. Anything else on that agenda item? Does that sound good?
That sounds fine.
Okay. So the down payment assistance program, Chris sent us the program policy, which I think looks fantastic.
Yeah, it looks great. Yeah.
I do. We can go through that. If anyone has any comments, I just have a couple clarification things. And then I'll also give you an update on, I had a meeting with Jacinia at Bread and Roses, which I think I sent you guys the email.
Yeah, before we get started, I just wanted to say, first of all, sorry for sending it so late. I know folks didn't really have a chance to probably read through it as thoroughly as they wanted to, but This is still a draft, and I think the one piece that will need probably the most amount of work is probably the application process section, because we need to think about how to operationalize this. And we didn't have enough time last time we chatted to talk about the actual process. So, perhaps we can dedicate a few moments today or, in a later meeting if we need to, but just wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think with everything that you have, we've pretty much covered like what the gist of the program's going to be. And that's probably, we can get down, address your next steps that are in here. I just had a couple of clarification things, like on the first page, the second paragraph, it's actually just, I think, a typo. You have upon the sale or sale. I think it's supposed to be sale or refinance or sale or transfer.
Yes, thank you.
The third paragraph, the up to 10% of purchase price, I think we put in there not to exceed $30,000.
Okay, I missed that in my notes, but thank you. So is it the lesser, or so is the lesser of either 30,000 or 10%?
Right, it can't go over 30,000.
Okay.
And then I think I added that again, page 2 at the bottom, where it says the maximum loan amount will be no higher than 10% of the purchase price. Again, we'll have to add not to exceed $30,000.
Yes.
Do we want to keep in, unless otherwise approved by the trust, the purchase price must not exceed the appraised value? I mean, under what circumstances would we approve it? Would we just want to say the purchase price must not exceed the appraised value?
Yeah, I think that's fine. when I was writing through this, I was trying to think of situations, and I thought there could be cases where perhaps the sale price is a tad bit higher from the appraisal just because of the craziness of the market. And it's still kind of reasonable. So say like someone is purchasing a property that's 10,000 above the appraised value. Just in today's market, there's a lot of activity, a lot of demand for homes. This may disadvantage home buyers who are contemplating this program. They might think, oh, now that the appraisal came in lower, I might not qualify for this.
Okay. Okay, then let's leave it the way it is, and we can talk about it. Like you said, if it's a few thousand, I don't think it's an issue.
It doesn't bind us. And we have the right to decide whether or not we want to go over the appraised value or not.
Right. No, I'm just saying, would we even want to make that decision, or just have a blanket statement that it can't be higher than the appraised value? But that's fine. I didn't think of it in a lower dollar amount aspect. So, okay, I'm fine with leaving that. And then the only other thing I had was on the next page, page 3, where it says the home buyer will also agree to the following requirements. I think we need to put something in about signing an affordability restriction. I don't know if that's going to be combined with the mortgage.
Lori, I don't think we can impose an affordability restriction, at least the traditional one, if we're only paying 10%.
Well, this is what I'm still trying to find out. So
affordability restriction, I think, would cost more in the neighborhood of $100,000.
I agree with you, George, but I also I have not been able to find an answer as to how you can use CPC or trust funds without an affordability restriction. I have been told that you cannot, so I don't know how other towns are doing it. Newburyport, from reading their material, only does this for properties that are already affordable, like restricted. So in other words, all of our properties at Kittredge Crossing or, the other condo place up there that already have the affordability restriction on it, their program will only do this for if you're buying one of those properties. And I know we don't want to do that. So I'm trying to find out, I have not been able to get an answer from anyone yet, as far as, can you do a restriction just for the 10 years? Does it have to be a permanent restriction? Because if it's a permanent restriction, nobody's going to agree to it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, George. We would need to give them $100,000 to purchase an affordability restriction that's permanent.
Easton gives up to $95,000.
What?
Easton gives up to $95,000.
Sorry.
You sent out documentation from Easton a couple months ago,
Yeah,
and they give up to $95,000 on their down payment assistance, and then they attach a permanent deed restriction or affordability restriction.
right. No, I know. I've said this all along, that the only way that we're going to be able to get a permanent restriction on the property is to basically buy a buy down program.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, but we know that there are other towns that do this, and there's all this literature from MHP about using CPC funds to do these types of programs, but it seems to conflict with what I'm being told by town council.
Laurie, when we say they need to sign an affordability restriction, what are the restrictions that are there specifically? Like, are we saying that it needs to be sold to an income eligible household? Does it have to be sold at a certain price? Sorry,
I'm
I
sorry.
know you were a little occupied there.
Yeah.
The question I was asking is, when we say affordability restriction, does it have to be something that restricts the sale price? Does it have to be does the property have to be sold to an eligible household? Like, are there minimum requirements to what the restrictions need to be?
Right. That's what I'm trying to find out. Honestly, I've been doing this since our last meeting. I actually have an email from the city of Boston that I was playing tag with about their program, because they partnered with MHP. They started a first-time home buyer program called Boston One Plus, and they'll receive $50,000 of CPA funding to use towards the cost of interest rate discount and financial assistance. So they partnered with a bank, and they partnered with MHP, and the loans payable upon sale, refinance, or transfer. But she didn't answer my question about the restriction. So
Well, Lori, I wonder if those communities that do this and advertise that they use CPC money means that they keep the housing trust out of the administration or out of the program.
But whether we are using CPC funds, so
Well-
that's not really an issue. We were going to use 100,000 of CPC funds and 100,000 of trust funds. And we mirrored at town meeting, if you remember, we're going to mirror the CPC statute. We're changing our bylaw to mirror the CPC. So whatever you could do under CPC, you'll be able to do under the trust. So,
And so then is that requirement that all affordable housing trust projects lead to creation of affordable housing? Is that still valid?
creation or support, where we're adding the word support. So I think if after town meeting, the bylaw changes pass, we're basically going to be under the same restrictions that CPC has. So we can do whatever CPC does, whatever we can do with CPC funding, we can do with trust funds, because it's all under the same premise with the support, adding the word support. So creation, preservation, support of affordable housing. Nowhere. So now we just have to figure out, can it just be a restriction for the time period for the 10 years? Or does it have to be a permanent restriction? And if so, what does that mean? And so I've asked town council, I have asked the city of Boston, I have asked MHP. I'm waiting for all three of them to give me an answer. Again, I don't know how other towns are doing it. Either they just aren't looking into it that deeply or aren't too concerned about it. But it seems weird that you'd be able to have this going on in so many places, but I can't get an answer on. Because you can't just give public money without a benefit.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's the issue. We're giving public money. What is the benefit? So that's where you get the exchange of consideration. We're going to give you 30,000. You're going to give us a restriction.
A cup of coffee.
So my question is, can you only do it, does it have to be permanent, or can we only do it for 10 years? Because if you only do it for 10 years, it's fine. It's just protecting us that it's going to be an affordable property for 10 years. And if they sell or whatever, that they do have to pay it back.
I'm just going to say preliminarily, Laurie, I think that it should be okay. It's not the term that should be the issue. I think 10 years would be fine. I mean, there are other programs out there that have, 10-year restrictions, like CDBG, for instance, for affordable housing. But I'm thinking the issue is going to be that the restriction is going to have to require like a resale to an income eligible household.
Right.
And that there will either be that resale requirement or some kind of recapture requirement where a certain amount of the funds, perhaps all of it, will need to come back to the trust. So if we get bad news and we're told that we have to have an affordable housing restriction that's more stringent than we're contemplating, then do we kind of create two programs? Just a regular down payment assistance program with our funds, and then perhaps something that's more closely aligned to a buy down program where more money would be given towards a purchase, but in return we get an affordable housing restriction. Perhaps that's what we use for the CPC funds.
But I don't think it matters whether it's our funds or CPC. We're all going to be under the same rules. It doesn't matter. It used to be CPC was more lenient, but now they changed the statute. So we're changing our bylaws so that it basically mirrors the CPC statute. So I don't think it matters where the funds are coming from. They're both considered public funds.
Okay, I see. I still think that there's an argument that it's benefiting the public because the money is being used for the assistance of a low moderate income household.
Right. So that's my argument too, that that once we have now added the word support to the Affordable Housing Trust after this town meeting, so that this is supporting affordable housing. And so that would be my argument, but is there something else that they're going to require to do that? But I think that the 10-year mortgage will be that written instrument rather than an actual restriction. But I mean, I think I'm kind of thinking the same way you are, Chris, that it should be okay, but I really need us to get an answer on it.
Right. So it seems like it's more important for us to get a beneficial interpretation from town council than the city of Boston or MHP, right?
Yeah. I mean, City of Boston's running the program with MHP, so they've got to be, and we're only giving 50,000. So it's not like they're giving 100, 125.
Yeah.
I highly doubt that they're making all of these permanently affordable, because it's the same thing here. It's payable on sale, refinance, or transfer. So she did say she'd be happy to set up a meeting. If I don't hear back, I will set up a meeting with her and try to figure out what they're doing, maybe ask for her paperwork. But that's the only thing that I have left to do is we just have to figure out the restrictions. So that's part of the administration.
Okay.
of it. I met with Jacinia, who said they could definitely take care of doing the approvals. and all of the paperwork that goes along with that. So basically, they would administer the program for us, and it would be $1,000 per applicant. So I don't, in the numbers that we were paying GLCAC for the rental assistance, that seems to be right, sort of in line. So I think we were like we originally agreed to 3%, and then we found out that it's usually was like 5 or 10%, that we were really low in what we were paying them. So this is, $1,000 based on a $30,000 loan.
Well, but if we get 10 applicants for that one $30,000 loan, I guess that's not going to happen, right?
Well, we don't have one $30,000 loan. We have 10 $30,000. We have 6. Basically, we're going to have what, 6?
I mean, I'm thinking it's $1,000 not per successful applicant, but per applicant. If we get deluged with applicants,
so.
But maybe we need to tell them, well, don't do too many without checking.
Well, I would think the applicants would be, once you get to, if you, I don't think they're all going to come in at once.
Right.
So once you get to the 6th one, we're basically at the end of our funds unless we decide to add more money. But I do think we need somebody that can do it. And I can tell you right now, Greater Lawrence Community Action Council is still very, very busy. And I don't want to throw one more thing at them. I'm sure they would be happy to do it, but I think it would be great to, have Bread and Roses involved again, because they do own several units in North Andover. And they're familiar with it. They know the process. She sent over application materials that we could probably use as a template that we can go over.
If they're going to process applications, we may as well use their form.
Yeah, well, she sent us the City of Haverhill, what they use in the City of Haverhill.
It's pretty thorough. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
So Larry, this is for cost per applicant, not necessarily applicant that's approved, right?
Right.
So
right. That's what George was saying. So the hope is that we don't have too many applicants that are denied. I mean, we could do like a pre-screening process here. This is kind of what we did. So for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, what we did is we had them fill out the application and they sent it to me. And I went through it and made sure that they had all the documents they were supposed to have and that they were in the income bracket they were supposed to be in. So it was sort of like a pre-screening so that they weren't all going to GLCAC. So there were probably 10, 12 applicants that never even made it to GLCAC for the program. They made it to them to look at for other programs that they might have been able to assist them with. But for the emergency program, they, right off the bat, you could tell that they didn't have the information they needed. So we could do something like that, and that would hopefully cut down on the paying for the processing.
Right. I'd certainly like to cut out the applications that are going to be refused right away.
Right.
Unless Bread and Roses cut the price. I mean,
well, I think their price is reasonable.
No, I mean $1,000 for a real application and $100 for essentially. I was going to use the term frivolous. That's not fair, but naive applications.
Yeah.
Oh, how about if they are to, so $1,000 for each applicant that's approved, but for applicants who aren't necessarily approved, like $100 an hour of their time.
That's true, because they may not get through the whole thing.
Right.
Okay.
So putting a cap of $1,000 per applicant. But they could charge us per hour for each application that comes in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, because she has that it's approximately 10 hours from the initial application to closing. That's probably what she means on here. I'll clarify with her, but she has from initial application to closing on funds. So that's the whole process. She's anticipating it's going to cost $1,000. But yeah, if they're shut down after their credit report comes in, and that was only, an hour worth of work, then yeah, you're right. We would only pay them 100. I'll clarify that with her.
Maybe we don't pay them anything.
What?
did you say, Joan?
Maybe we don't pay them anything.
Don't pay them anything?
So ask what
I can't hear you.
if they do not qualify. Ask what happens. Don't volunteer $100 an hour. What happens to the money? They do not qualify.
What happens to what money?
$1,000.
We pay them. It's a processing fee. We're not going to ask them to do the work for free.
Oh, no. But when they're reviewing the application, if they find the person does not qualify, how much is it going to cost us? You're saying we will pay $100 an hour.
Yeah.
Then what they want, it might be less than that. It might be nothing. It's the way you ask the question. You give the answer to the question and you don't know what their answer is.
Okay. I'm still confused. You don't want me to ask her?
Yes, you have to ask what happens. If they don't qualify, what is the cost?
Okay.
That's how you put it. Instead of saying, if they don't qualify, we'll pay you $100 an hour.
Okay. I'll ask her. So she sent us a sample application and also the sample mortgage. So I think maybe I can try to develop those, tailor them to North Andover, and maybe we review them at the next meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the down payment assistance program?
No, I'm good.
No, I just thought what was written looked very professionally written.
Yeah, I think it was awesome.
Yeah, very impressive. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I took some of it from what we had created last year for the rehab program.
Mm.
I do think that among the obvious updates we're going to have to make that Laurie's bringing up, we'll probably have to fine tune the application process too, and it's going to make sense to mirror whatever Brian Roses has, but we can certainly work on updating that as we get closer to the finish line. So I think everything we've discussed addresses all of the questions for next steps in terms of finding someone to administer and developing the program materials.
Okay.
And Laurie, I'll do some research on my end too about the affordability restriction. And
That'd be
see
great.
what I come up with as well. But it seems like all signs are kind of pointing towards we're going to need something that imposes more requirements than we want to. But ultimately, it might be really up to us to determine how comfortable we feel not imposing the stringent requirements.
Right. Right. I mean, from my point of view, we have the mortgage on the property and it's there for 10 years and we're protected should they leave within the 10 years. To me, that should be a valid consideration that we've got it restricted and they're not just getting the money and they don't have to do anything for it. They actually have to stay in the home and, for the 10 years or pay it off. So I don't know. But once we get the answer to that question, I think we'll be in a lot better position to figure out what we want to do. Okay. Next, discussion on funding program to assist residents below 30% AMI.
Yeah, okay. Remember, this came out of one of the strategies in the master plan is that Affordable Housing Trust should work to offset housing costs for households earning less than 30%. And at this point, I sort of made a unilateral decision. We can talk about it if you want to, but I think this is a rental program. I don't think we want to try to encourage or support home ownership for people earning less than 30% or earning no more than 30%. So I was looking into rental assistance and just looking at the difference between rents that can be afforded by people earning earning no more than 30% and fair market rent. It would cost between about $5,000 and $12,500 or $15,000 per year per person. We could help quite a few people if we budgeted 100,000, whatever. I don't know what kind of amount we're talking about, but anyway, the number in my head is that if we did just a straight rental subsidy, it would be like a Section 8 voucher. We'd give a voucher to somebody; they could go out and get an apartment, and pay fair market rent, and we'd pay the difference between 30% of their salary and the fair market rent. And that would be between $5,000 and $15,000 per person, per household. And then the information I got from other towns that have programs that support 30%, it seems like what those trusts have done is they've given several $100,000 of it to some non-profit, community development corporation or something like that. That organization then develops housing. A lot of it, I think, some of it certainly, and I believe for the prices I saw, I think a lot of it, they develop housing on the single room occupancy. In other words, the person doesn't get the full apartment, but they do get a place to live with recreational facility, living room, a kitchen, laundry, and so on and so forth. But that involves teaming with a nonprofit. I mean, we wouldn't develop a building like that ourselves, I don't think. And then so I was thinking, well, what kind of nonprofit could we team with? I mean, Emmaus and Haverhill comes to mind, but I don't think they do anything out of Haverhill. I called and asked them, and they said they don't do anything outside of Haverhill. But another one might be Bread and Roses. This might be another area where we could partner with Bread and Roses. I have no idea if they have done anything that's aimed at less than 30%, but I would think, since I think Jasenia is fairly ambitious and so on, that if the right opportunity came along, they might consider undertaking a project that would have multiple units, perhaps single room occupancy, certainly small units, and would be limited then to people earning no more than 30% of affordable housing. So that's the second idea. The third idea, and the idea that I think excites me the most, is, Laura, your suggestion that that we could support the housing authority in building a building, or helping them support a project that they would undertake to develop new property that they would administer, and we'd have an understanding with the housing authority that it would be reserved for people earning less than 30%, earning no more than 30% of AMI. And you first mentioned this several months ago, but you said you were waiting because the executive director was expecting. Has she delivered yet? What's her schedule?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would hope so. I don't know when her due date was, but I can follow up with Maggie, or someone on the board. Tracy Watson's on their board.
Yeah.
Last I checked with her was
Another Max Butterroot is on the board, and I'm
Yep.
on another. I don't know what to call it. I participate in Zoom meetings with him in another context, and I could shoot him an email or something and ask him.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. I would love to resurrect that idea that we had for Fountain Drive. I would like to start pursuing that now more aggressively, because if we can get a plan together, then we can jointly do an application to CPC next year.
Yeah.
So if we can use this year for a planning process between our funds and then applying for CPC, I think it would be. My only thing is I don't know, if it's too much on her plate. I mean, they had a big application for CPC last year and this year. So, but I'd be happy to follow up and see if that's, something that we want to do.
I assume, I don't know this, but I would assume that the housing authority would have access to some funds, not enough funds so that they could build the building by themselves. But if it was say a $500,000 project or $750,000, they could get maybe $100,000 from someplace, so that the trust wouldn't have to put up all the money.
No, we wouldn't. No, there is, because there's different funding sources, whether it's be grants or through the state or through the federal programs. There's definitely, it's going to be multiple buckets that are all going to be feeding into this project.
And then another advantage, well, this would be true if we partnered with any nonprofit, but anyway, they could give the homeowners more support in terms of life skills. It's like Habitat. When you buy a Habitat house, you're getting more than the house. You're getting a network that will support you. So if we developed a project, if we supported a project like this, I'd like to partner with an organization that can provide more than just the bricks and mortar for the place where they sleep. They have training opportunities, counseling service, offer counseling services, and so on.
Yep.
And the housing authority, I believe, qualifies in that respect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did in the past have a self-sufficiency program.
Yeah.
And for some reason they dropped it. I never really got an explanation as to why, but maybe that's something they would be interested in resurrecting. I will give them a call and I'll see if, maybe we could get on their agenda, their next meeting, or have a conversation with Maggie and maybe Max and Tracy about whether it's something that they think that they'd be able to dedicate some time to, so with a target of next year's town meeting to get a plan put together.
Well, so maybe then for the next Affordable Housing Trust meeting, there could be an agenda item to discuss or to report on the status of negotiations with the housing authority.
Sure.
That you think?
Yep. You got that, Chris?
Yes, I do.
No, I think that's a great idea. Do you guys agree? We'll try to resurrect that project and see if we can get the ball rolling now that we're, past COVID, and hopefully Maggie's had a healthy pregnancy and she's ready to get back to work. We'll see. Okay. All right. So the last item on the agenda is to vote for a new chair. So my time is up as of June 30th. So we'll need a new chair in place for the next year. And as you guys know, the select board requests us to rotate, and Chris has graciously volunteered. Hopefully that's still the case.
It is still the case, yes.
And so just to clarify, so I will, because I am also an employee of the town, I would still, you would set the agenda, send it to me. I would still post it, and I will still take the, I will still do the meeting minutes. I think that was one thing that was a bit of a struggle for me, is trying to do the minutes and run a meeting at the same time. It's really not an easy thing to do. So I find myself having to go back and watch the meeting. But so just so you know, I'll still continue to do that.
Okay, that's good to know. In terms of setting the agenda, I don't know specifically what the open meeting laws require or permit, but do folks know if it would be okay that a person emails the group and says, do you have any agenda items? Can you just respond to me individually if you'd like to have anything discussed? Would that be permitted?
Yeah, that's fine. So you can send out an email saying, the agenda needs to be posted by Thursday or whatever. Does anyone have anything they want on the agenda? And just the response is just you with, yes, I want the discussion about 30%, or I want the, and if you're fine with putting those things on the agenda, then you'd let me know, okay, here are the items that we want to put on the agenda for this meeting.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think that's more of a comment, Laurie, to how well you managed these meetings from beginning to end. So you've made it seem very easy and effortless, and we've talked about so much, and I've done so much within my time here. So big shoes to fill. Even though it's just setting the agenda, but still, you've done an amazing job, Laurie. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, you certainly have, Laurie. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. So do we have a motion?
As I say, I move that I nominate Chris for chairman and Lori for secretary. Move that we approve them or whatever.
Second it.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Gibbons, yes.
I guess Chris is a yes too, if I can vote.
George is a yes.
Roger is a yes.
And I am a yes, so that's great. 5-0.
Well,
All right.
Lori, I'll also add, I think you've been a wonderful chairman, and I have full confidence in Chris. I'm a little sorry to see you step down. I understand the circumstances.
Thank you, George. I appreciate that. I did say that I would seek reappointment to stay on the trust. So I'll still be here. So that's good.
Well, you're certainly an invaluable trustee because of your connections with the town.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm the Board of Selectmen appointee. So,
Well,
oh no, that's Dick now. That's right. That is Dick now. Forgot. Anyway, all good. All good.
We'll continue on.
Yeah.
Well, Laurie, I think also not only your connections to the town, but also just the amount of effort you put into everything.
Yeah, I don't mean it was limited to that. I just, among other things.
Yes.
Was
Yeah.
particularly.
Thank you. Do we want to just touch base to set up a new meet for the next meeting, or do you guys? I know we're starting to get into vacation season now, so it might start to get tough. What are you guys thinking about for a next meeting? Do you want to wait until? So.
I always like to set the next meeting at the meeting because it's.
Yeah, it gets it in your
hard to do by
calendar.
email.
So if we go a month, well, that's the 4th of July week, so we know that's not going to work.
Right.
And if we stick to a Tuesday, and remember, we're going to be going back to in-person, so the time will probably have to be a little later to accommodate. We'll probably have to go back to the 6 o'clock time.
That's fine with me.
Laurie, I think personally, I'll be working from home at least until the end of the calendar year. So for me,
Oh.
5 o'clock will be okay.
Oh, okay, good. All right, so I'll check with Dick. He would, I think, be the only other one that would have maybe a commute issue. Does July 13th work? Is anyone on vacation that week?
That works for me.
I think I'm all set.
Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah, that works for me as well.
All right, so why don't we say July 13th at 5? I'll check. I'll send an email out. I'll check with Dick and see if that doesn't work. We might have to push it to 5:30. And Rob, oh, I don't know if he's commuting yet. I don't know if he's has an issue, but we'll set it for the 13th at 5. And
Yeah, we can always change it. All right.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say the time can be TBD.
yeah, Yeah.
Getting the date, and we know it's gonna be late afternoon or evening, so that's the big item.
okay. All right, so July 13th it is, in person.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's great.
Yippee. All right, so then I just need a motion to adjourn and we'll be all set.
Laurie, I know we're a month away, but what is the protocol in terms of going into the town hall? Like, do we need to still wear a mask?
Nope, we're fully back to pre-COVID. Masks are not required, but you're welcome to wear them if you're more comfortable. I think I have to double check with the town manager. I think we're still going to have a sign-in sheet just because of contract tracing if we ever had to get in touch with people, but you're not required to wear any masks. And we're not required, we don't have room limitations anymore. We can all be in the same room.
Sounds
So-
good.
Sounds
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Okay, well, I move we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that, George.
All right, roll call.
Joan Fitzgibbons, yes.
George.
Chris is a yes.
Chris, yes. George, yes.
Roger, yes.
And Laurie is yes. Wonderful. All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful day.
Yeah.
Thank you. You as well.
All right,
You too.
catch you
Okay.
later.
Bye, everyone.
I know.
Bye.